Maggie's the next speaker, and Chip gave her a tremendous segue into her topic. Her topic is not what's written on the paper in front of you, she tells me. So I think we're all going to be surprised, but Maggie, whenever you're ready, come on up. I should say about Maggie just one word. I've known her forever. She's been fighting this battle forever with Al Gore and with other people, training thousands of people around the world to speak intelligently about climate. So she's a hero of mine. I'm really glad she's here, Maggie.
Hi. I sort of feel like I'd love to try to do a little of this in a short time and then have 5 minutes of conversation. I don't know if I'll pull it off. First of all, the title of this particular panel to another meaty topic, but that isn't how the agenda was set up. So I'll apologize for that, because I can't fix your energy for you. Or mine, because I'd really rather stay on that topic for a second. The title that was put on in the book is not my title, and so I'll tell you what I think it is. The role of women in stabilizing our climate and our democracies. The role of women in stabilizing our climate and our democracies. Because I don't think an American democracy is the only democracy at risk. Democracies are all around the world are at risk, and women are missing in that effort to stabilize in any significant way, and that's a lot of the destabilization. So there are a lot of points I want to make, and some of them are serious and some of them are hopefully light. I want to begin with a story, which will seem me at the onset to be unrelated. I hope you'll bear with me for a second. And it goes back to tie these last two, this panel to this. I don't remember what number it was, but there was something in Bill's list about we have to try something new. That's where I've been for quite a while. I think in the world of climate and in the world of change, equity, justice, liberty, we've been at the same tactics for quite a long time, and they haven't been working. They haven't really made much of a difference. On the margins we have, but every now and then we get a victory. But in terms of changing things, nothing's really changed. We have a lot more sophisticated lifestyles and communication systems, but at the core, the inequities are deeply ingrained in our structures. So the first thing I want to posit is that we don't just misunderstand the role of story and narrative. We misunderstand that these are systems. We operate inside systems. And until we stop thinking about change as tactics or strategies, and do I need to get it closer? Whoa!
I'm so sorry.
That was not fun.
I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to get a little closer to you.
Well, the problem is there's not water everywhere.
It's okay. I'll get you a cloth in a second.
Okay. I didn't need my notes anyway. And if I did, that's too bad. They were in purple ink, and now they're not. I actually want to, because this is a tribal gathering, and so I'm not up here to do statistics, and I'm not up here to talk about specific goals. I'm actually here to try to get us to think differently. In my life and in my career, I've moved from being a strategist to a systems thinker. And I've done that not because it was endemic in me. It's because moving from strategy to system thinking is the only way to start tackling the scope of the challenges that we face. When we look at inequity, racial or economic inequities, when we look at the climate changes that are occurring, these are big system changes. When we look at how we live on this planet and how we have since human beings arrived in some form on this planet, there was life here before us. We've been changing the systems. But yet when we come to recognizing that some of the systems are not working for us, we never stop and pull back and look at the system changes that are occurring and how we can move those systems in the way we believe are more equitable and more human and more life-affirming. We think about strategies, and we come at problems in very small ways when we're trying to change big system problems. So I've come to believe that looking to Indigenous people is one of the first things that we should be doing to identify how to go forward by looking at our very beginnings, not just our beginnings as a country, as a founding country in the United States based on a rebellion against a king, but how we operated before all those systems existed in the complexity and sophistication that they do. So where does that lead us in my story and the role of women? Recently I saw a film, a wonderful film of a woman artist by the name of Ana Maria Hernando. She's Argentinian. She's been in the United States a long time, but she carries Argentina in her fabric, every breath and every word and everything she does. Her art has spanned over 40 years, and it's hard to believe in some ways that she's the same artist, because when you look at the body of her work, it has changed so radically in so many different mediums that some of her early pieces don't resemble. It's like it's a different person. The film, Ana Maria Hernando, Undomesticated, is the phrase. Well, what is that? It drew me, so I went to see her, and I met her. And in the course, she doesn't talk about it in the film, it's very short. But in the course of the conversation, I asked her afterward in the Q&A, why this term undomesticated? Because undomesticated is a reference to women. Who are the domesticated workers of the world? Women. Who are that part of the human condition that makes life possible, brings children into the world, and takes care of the hearth, in the broadest sense of hearth? Women. And she smiled and said, you know, in my life, I have a domesticated side and an undomesticated side. And if I could do this in Spanish, I would, but I would butcher it terribly. I'm still listening, and the audience is listening, and she said, my domesticated side is necessary. I have to pay the bills. I have to get food on the table. I had to raise my children. I had to live in the world today. I have a domesticated side. But my life, my creativity, the power of who I am, that is my undomesticated side. That is my art. And in that moment, more than any other moment, was the realization of the role of woman. She thought she was explaining an individual thing, but to me, it was almost a revolution inside of me, of an awareness of the power of the creative. So of all of Bill's 10 positions, there's really only one that matters: the creative, the driving life force in all of us. And we do not bring that to the climate fight. It is a fight of facts and numbers and not of passion. It should be a fight of art and literature and music and life. At the essence, climate change is about life. We don't even understand life yet. The wonderful new knowledge emerging about the communication between trees. Well, Indigenous people have always known this, and somehow we completely decided that that information wasn't at all valuable because of power and control, equity and division. So there are a million reasons why women, as half the population on the planet or more, as men murder each other, is important, but at the essence, it is at the heart of our human condition as creative beings. And because women bring life to earth in the form of other human beings. And therefore, this business of control and power, why has abortion become one of the most divisive political issues in this country? It is about control and power. When women have the right to decide if, when, and how they have children, the whole society changes. Everything changes. It is the most inexpensive and most powerful first step to a climate equitable world. Population is out of control. Resource extraction is out of control. We can't live within our limits. We've already passed them. There are more people on this planet than we can actually manage, no matter how much technology we apply to actually feeding people better. We have plenty of food, but we continue to bring more and more children onto this planet. The only way that can change is when women make those decisions, and women will know. We do know when the balance is off. And we do know when we are capable of bringing children into the world and caring for them. And you don't have to be a mother to know that. You can be someone who cares about life and children. You don't have to actually be a mother yourself. That's not a line, a demarcation line. So I would say at the end of this, because I have no idea about time, and I never do. It doesn't seem to interest me terribly. And the more interested I am in the undomesticated side, the more unimportant it becomes. The undomesticated creative force in us is how we actually find and create the stories, find and create the narratives that we have to weave together. It's all here. So to your question, Osprey, it's work. Watching these movements rise up out of the fabric of this country and around the world, isolated to some extent, because we actually haven't decided that the work is to weave them together. We've been putting our efforts in some cases into helping those stories arise, but when they arise alone and unconnected, they rise and fall that way. The weaving together, the reality of the creative force, the reality of the undomesticated in every woman and man is essential to driving the change that we need. And I don't want to leave you with the information isn't critical. But if that is all that we have no life force. The life force is what brings that information in and transforms it into something of utility and value to us, not just as information that sits isolated in and of itself. So women are not just half of the solution. Women are much more than that because of the fundamental recognition of who we are as beings and what we have to create. And until we understand that and move on it and recognize that's a massive system change, just like climate is a massive system change, and the two are inextricably tied together and must be unified in our minds and in our hearts to move forward. I'm going to stop because this says there's 2 minutes and 26 seconds because I have several other things I would say. But out of this conversation, I want you to walk away with one thing, two things. System change is not strategic. It's larger than that, and you need to think bigger. And at the essence of that thinking, go first to creative and to heart, and then move out, rather than first to science, data, policy, and politics, because you can't change any of that until you begin in the right place. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions they want to provoke it further? I'd love to hear them. To you, to the tribe. Okay, questions. Let's have a question. Does anybody have a thought or a question? Yeah, it's a mess. It's a little bit. I'm dry practically, but this is messy. Yes. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Great. Everything you're saying is really resonating. I'm new to this tribe. Anthropology is my background, and I also have strategies behind my name, like you.
Good.
And just what you're saying about moving from providing strategies, whether it's to business partners or nonprofits, which might be the easier tactic. It's more controlled. Here, do this, 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 then this will result. Kind of looking at the deeper issue of systems thinking. So I think I'm going to walk away keeping that in mind. It might be the harder way to address problems, but that's really going to be the thing that creates true change. And just also from the anthropologist mindset that I bring, how can we weave in the stories of people, how climate change is affecting them, into the bigger narrative? Whether it's people off the coast of Alaska. I have a friend documenting the coastline of Alaska and how indigenous people are losing their way of living because of climate change. How can we tell those stories and everyday people and get, the whole country around this tribe of understanding this is for the people. This is a movement of the people and for the people. It's not just science or this one group. So those are my 2 cents.
The one thing I would say is that when I was running Climate Reality, and I learned the hard way that there really nothing matters to any of us except what we love. And so you have to actually begin and end every strategic endeavor with those voices who are losing something they love, but link it to the threat to someone else's love, because we don't all love exactly the same things. So it's not the narrative. Individual stories around loss are about linking it to other losses, and the accumulation of that becomes a collective loss instead of an individual isolated loss. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. This man has had his hand up for a long time. Equity.
I'll try and keep it quick. Carbon Tracker, we're trying to mobilise the financial market to wind down the fossil fuel industry in a climate-safe way. And I think one of the things I realised years ago is, goes for all of us unfortunately, we have to recognise that we are, to most people out there, we are weird. And, sorry, is that perfect. We quite often fall into the trap of talking at our audiences about the things that we're really passionate about in our own language. And isn't the thing that we all have to find a way of doing, and I think you almost said this, is we have to understand what do our audiences care about and talk to them about that, but in their language, not our language. And I think that's actually much more difficult to do in practice. It's easy to say, but it's difficult to do in practice. So perhaps you could comment on that, because that would be...
I used to think about it exactly that way, that it was my job as a speaker to gauge the audience and speak to them. But actually, I think it's that my job as a speaker is to find something we're all interested in. Otherwise, I'm feeding you. And in fact, what I want to do is unite us. And so my thinking is, so this could be a different tribe if I'm thinking about what you're doing. Let's say this is a Rotary Club. What was the place? Hotchkiss or something, somewhere. But there is something that unifies me as a speaker with this crowd, and that's where I want to go, rather than just talking to them about what I think they're interested in. I have to find some place where the two meet, and that is the work, because sometimes it's not obvious. Back to your point about something being hard, it's only valuable if it's hard.